President Trump making waves in the markets this morning, threatening 25% tariffs on Apple if American-sold iPhones aren't made in the U.S. and recommending a 50% tariff on the EU starting June 1st. The president saying, quote, our discussions with them are going nowhere. Joining us right now, Congressman French Hill, chairman of the Financial Services Committee, which oversees crypto's legislative work. We're going to get to that in just a moment. But I just want to get your reaction both to Trump versus Apple, Trump versus the EU. You could say Trump versus Harvard, Trump versus BlackRock. What do you make of this morning?
Yeah. Well, there's nothing more complicated than the iPhone supply chain. And we want more things made in America. And, of course, the screens are made with Corning. And I think the Corning folks, it's a rebirth of our great company Corning here in America as a part of the iPhone supply chain. And after the pandemic, we saw Apple choose to diversify its supply chain. And Foxconn led manufacturing more out of China and over to India, which I think was a good supply chain move. The key here is supply chains are complicated. They take time to move. And there's the comparative advantage of what do we do best here in the United States versus what's best done somewhere else. So I think the president's goal should be what more components besides software, design, engineering, the glass, some of the chips could be made here. If he wants them assembled here, I think that will take time to do. And it's not an overnight thing.
So who's going to tell him? You going to tell him?
I think we all have been talking about this with Howard, with Scott Bassett.
So this is not obvious. I don't know what this is. This is an opening. Well, it's not opening, but it's a salvo. But there's an off ramp. That's what we just asked an analyst. What's the off ramp? How does the president get what he wants, and Apple gets to keep doing what?
I think all the big picture issues that Trump has raised about moving more production back to the country are good, and we should try to do that where we have a comparative advantage. But it takes time. In the meantime, something like the EU discussion is about, come on, let's have a discussion. We've tried to have a trade progress under 2 or 3 presidencies with the EU, and we've not made much progress.
Speak to this, though, if you could, which is, and we were talking to David Rubenstein about this, the president has been very public about his want for folks like the EU to treat companies like Apple and Facebook and American companies properly, right?
Right.
And he has been very vociferous in the idea that when they go after our companies, that's a problem. And so how do you sort of square the idea that he goes after our companies, if you will, in this kind of regard? And then what you have is the EU says, well, if he's doing it, you know, what are you even talking about?
Well, look, my best advice to the president is stick with the macro. Stick with what you can do to open up markets for America, have America's competitive advantage delivered, set long-term goals here for aluminum, steel, other forms of technology. People want to come to the U.S. Regardless of all the noise we've had, all the uncertainty around that this spring, the number one place for foreign direct investment is the U.S. The rules in the EU, the taxes in the EU, Mario Draghi's report told all of Europe, wake up. More than about NATO defense, wake up about our own economic policy.
So why is that message not being heard when it's been delivered by Mario Draghi's report, when it's come from other ways? Is it the way we're asking it? Is it the way we're going about it? And do you think there will be progress that will be made? Or is the market's reaction, the knee-jerk reaction to this with the sell-off, the proper way, because it's going to be a complicated and long, messy process to getting there?
This is about, this is my concern about trade right now. There are things we can do in the short run, using tariffs, using market opening, doing bilateral negotiation. But some of these longer-term trends, I think the market is overreacting to it in the sense that it's going to take time. And my advice to Howard Lutnick and Scott Bassett and Donald Trump is set out the expectations for voters. What can be short-term successes that brings certainty, opens up markets for America, has reciprocity trade, but recognize it's going to take a long time to return certain production activities to the U.S.
In the language this morning, the president said that he was going to recommend a 50% tariff starting on June 1st. Who's he recommending that to? The Senate? Like, I mean, if it's not an emergency, if it's not a fentanyl situation, does he have the authority?
Recommending it to himself.
Yeah, I think his pitch is, you're not at the table, we need you at the table. We made progress in the United Kingdom on a step 1 deal that I hope leads to a free trade agreement with the United Kingdom, personally.
The trade questions, though, are raising all kinds of questions about what growth will be in this country next year. And you can have the tax bill passed, and you can say it's going to be a better situation because it's a growth fueled bill.
Right.
If it's a growth fueled bill that it gets chopped off at the knees by a trade policy that is, growth shrinking, where does that leave us?
Well, I've said all along, if we want greater certainty for business investment, business planning, consumer prices, what you're going to buy for Halloween, we do want the tax certainty that I think House Republicans delivered yesterday about saying we're not going to have a 22% tax increase on our households, and we're going to have some business planning taxation expectations. We're delivering that, I think, on right-sizing regulatory burden. Mm-hmm. So regulation policy, tax policy heading in the right direction. And we want to see trade policy head in the right direction, which I think can be in these multiple areas, long-term and short-term. And I want to see less volatility by delivering some wins. And I think Treasury Secretary Bessent is on the hunt for that success. But when it comes to the EU or China, these are not overnight success stories, in my view. I hope they are. That'd be fantastic. But I think this is a multi-month or year activity, and President Trump has 4 years to work on that. So let's set expectations right for what is a win and what time frame in each category. That's my best advice. Separate issue.
Yeah. Given your interest in crypto and financial markets, can you speak to just the dinner last night? And maybe that's a red herring, it's sort of an irrelevancy, but there are folks out there reading these headlines about this big dinner and saying, what's going on here?
Well, I've said on the record, the Trump family activity in the meme coin space makes my work in Congress more complicated. I've said that. But here's the good news. I'm in New York today for the Solana Foundation conference about the future of Web3 and the future of how we're going to use blockchain to transform our economy in a number of ways. And what my goals are to have a dollar-backed stablecoin legislation this year and a market framework legislation passed this year that President Trump can sign into law. And that will bring innovation, coding, funding back to the United States and put us back in the lead, in my view, on this aspect of fintech. And I believe we can do it. And so I view the dinner last night as, whatever. That's, to me, a distraction from the work I think we need to do for the major big picture macro policy.
Well, if Bitcoin's not a risk asset anymore, I don't know how you explain what you're seeing there, because it was holding above 111,000 all morning long till this, and now it's down. That goes down at 107. Is it possible that not the meme coin, but the stable coin that Trump's involved with, is it possible that is a benefit to I mean, he made some comment about how I'm not looking for anything for myself. I'm trying, or he didn't, but that's how whoever's running the communications on this said that it's good for the rest of the country. Is it possible that a stable coin based on the dollar would, I mean, we had Tether on earlier. He said it helps for dollar hegemony, and it helps for, it's another place to buy treasuries if foreign countries don't. Yeah. Could that be something that, or is that still another headache for you?
No, I don't think it's a headache at all. I think that the work Brian Stile is doing in the House and Bill Hagerty is doing with his colleagues in the Senate to create a dollar-backed stablecoin is an important strategic asset.
Trump World Global?
Well, they would have to comply with the new federal law.
Right.
And no one right now complies with the work that we've done in the House or Senate on a stablecoin act. Circle doesn't fully comply. Tether's not even in the United States. It's outside the U.S. It wouldn't comply. So if we have a high standard, the world will come to that high standard for enforcement and for definition. And, if the Trump coin can meet that definition, so be it. There'll be multiple competing stable coins, in my view. You see the headlines today that the large banks are thinking about collectively having a stable coin. Right. It's a new payment rail in Web3 on a blockchain to compete with other payment methodologies. I don't view it as a store of value. I view it as debit cash, credit stablecoin, buy something institutionally or as a consumer.
Do you see it as hopefully disinflationary, meaning that it should take cost out of the system?
Oh, my gosh, yeah. Well, blockchain generally, what attracts me to crypto is not crypto, not Bitcoin, but the operating system benefits of blockchain. I think it takes costs out of the system. I think for consumers, it creates accessibility. Look at the Benji, which is Franklin Templeton's money market account that's been tokenized. They can offer that at a higher rate and a lower dollar amount to customers because the cost has been taken out of the system, and yet fully compliant with the SEC.
I mean, we're talking stable coins. We're talking the Genius Act. Scaramucci said it yesterday. It's just too easy. It should be the Stable Genius Act.
Oh, I know.
Am I right or am I right? It's too easy.
We have the Stable Act in the House, different, but good, and we have Genius. Can you imagine what serendipitous? It's so
That's what I mean. It's just
it's amazing.
Look at you.
No, the Mooch came up with that
When
yesterday.
it all comes together.
Yeah.
Tether would not be compliant. That's your.
What's that?
Tether wouldn't be compliant.
No, but there isn't a stable coin issuer that is compliant with the definitions that we've crafted in the House and Senate work by Style and Haggerty. But high demand for treasuries, insured deposits, Treasury overnight repo will back this dollar for dollar with high audit standards, high definition standards. That doesn't exist in the world right now. So that's why I believe it'll be good for short treasuries, is answer your comment on demand. But look at that makes the dollar the currency around the world at retail in that point of sale. And Tether outside the U.S., in my view, has demonstrated that at retail in some countries with weak banking systems.